Call to order the Mendocino Council of Governments. Could you please call roll?
Yeah, Director Steve Scalamini.
Here.
Director Larry Stransky.
Yes.
Director Richie Wasserman.
Here.
Director Susan Ranachek.
Here.
Director Georgianne Krosky.
Here.
Jack Brexman. Rex Jackman. Sorry.
Did that last time.
Oh, sorry.
Here on the phone.
Thank you. And Chair Dan Jurdy.
Here. Okay, we're going to convene as the Regional Transportation Planning Agency, immediately recess, and reconvene as the Policy Advisory Committee. First item on our agenda is public expression. Participation in our council meetings is welcome. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have any public comments and non-agenda items? Okay, seeing none, we'll go right into our first item, which is item 5, public hearing, unmet transit needs for fiscal year 18-19, including Social Services Transportation Advisory Council recommendation for November 13th, 2017. Do we need to provide?
Janet's going to be handling this.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to make a finding of proper notice. We had a 30-day notice that appeared in the Ukiah Daily Journal on November 3rd. We had 2 other additional legal notices in Mendocino Beacon and the Independent Coast Observer. And also we posted the notice on our website, and we emailed to a list of interested transit stakeholders. So we've more than met the requirement.
Okay, and at 1:33 we'll open the public hearing. So go ahead.
Yes, I think we'd like to have a motion that there was
Proper notice?
Proper notice.
Is there,
Thank you.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and second.
Okay.
Do we need a roll call because of the phone?
No, oh, because of, yeah, I'm sorry, because of the teleconference, everything is roll call vote. So we'll just make that a quick one.
Scalamini.
Am I supposed to have seen this thing to say yes on it or what?
This is just a notice to that we did do a public notice.
We can show you this.
Oh, you got a copy of it? Okay,
It's
fine.
a legal
All right,
notice.
all right.
Scalamini, yes.
Yes.
Stransky.
Yes.
Wasserman.
Yes.
Ranachek.
Yes.
Krosky.
Yes.
Jackman.
Yes.
And Jurdy.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right. So I'd like to give the brief staff report and then see if we have any additional public testimony. You have my written report there in the board agenda packet. And so this is our annual public hearing for unmet transit needs according to the Transportation Development Act. And in our case, this is a voluntary process because the purpose of the process is if you were going to allocate any of the TDA funds, Transportation Development Act TDA funds for other than transit needs, if you were going to allocate to streets and roads any of that money, you would first have to determine whether there are any unmet transit needs. Sorry, I stumbled over that a little bit. The bottom line is that we are not allocating this type of money for streets and roads. All of the available funds from TDA is going to transit already. But we do like to continue to do this process for several other reasons. And so customarily, we've held this process annually. And you can see there in my staff report, I talk about how it meets the TDA requirement for citizen participation process. And we find it useful for identifying and assessing transit services, what the public would like to see, and going through a prioritization. And so when we do have any funds available or there are grants coming available, we know what are the top needs. So we do like to go through this process in any case. So at this point, the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council, the SSTAC, has had their annual workshop. They identified 5 unmet transit needs that are listed in your packet here. We have a list of needs here. And that starts off the annual process, and then we come here to this December public hearing. And we also have a list in your packet of needs that were identified by Mendocino Transit Authority during the year at their board meetings, when they have pretty much a standing agenda item that the public can come forward and identify needs. So we have a list of 12 needs from MTA. And also I invited any other needs to come to me from the public and from SSTAC members in time for today's hearing. I have not received any further input. I have not had any further emails or anything in the mail, no phone calls. So this is our list right now. This is all of the assembled needs, and pretty much it's kind of a brainstorm list. It's not a prioritized list. That will come later. So after today, we would like these needs to, the action we'd like from you today is to forward any needs identified today to Mendocino Transit Authority. They will analyze the list and bring it to our transit committee in the spring. And then they will come up with a recommendation for you later on. So any questions about the process?
I have a question about the item, but I don't know if it's about the process per se.
Okay.
What's up with the county not having a sustainable community strategy? Or who's working on that?
Is that one of the needs on the list that you see?
Well, it's under, under C in page 6 of this.
Want me address that?
Well, whoever.
The question was what again?
Well, what's up with the county not having a sustainable community strategy or alternative planning scenario?
Well, we're not required. Only if we are in non-attainment are we required to have a sustainable communities plan.
Okay.
I actually think that our regional blueprint has many of the same ideas that would be in a sustainable community plan.
The sustainable communities came out of that same bill, and it's one of those things that flow out of it after the blueprint process, but it's really directed at areas that have a lot of congestion, and we don't, and so, but the requirement is everywhere that is in non-attainment must have one.
Okay.
So it's not required here.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on the unmet transit needs? Not seeing any. Any board questions on the list? So again, this will be adopted by us and then referred back to MTA for review and comment. Someone want to make a motion? Or I guess maybe we should close the public hearing then at 1:39. Does someone want to make a motion?
We have a recommended action in my staff report. We've already made the finding of proper notice. We've had the public hearing, and you see my recommendation there is to make a finding that the testimony heard includes unmet transit needs as qualified by MCOG's adopted definitions. Those are in your packet. And those needs are directed to Mendocino Transit Authority for analysis and further review and recommendations by the Transit Productivity Committee and Social Services Transportation Advisory Council.
I'll move the recommended action.
Thank you.
Second it.
Okay. Any comments on the motion? Not seeing. Roll call.
Okay. Scalmini,
Yes.
Stransky,
Yes.
Wasserman,
Yes.
Ranachek,
Yes.
Krosky,
Yes.
Jackman,
Yes.
Chair Jurdy.
Yes. Okay, now we have another public hearing on.
Thank you very much.
On the 2018 Regional Transportation and Improvement Program.
Nafili Barrett is going to be presenting that to you. Whoops, she's switching sides here. On my right. And if you recall, last month she gave you kind of an introduction to it of what's in the plan, and now that she's all set, I'll hand over. I don't know if that one works. I'll hand over the microphone.
Okay, so first we do need to make a finding of proper notice.
Let me do that. You there?
Okay.
Thank you. So it's a 10-day notice. It was published in the Ukiah Daily Journal on November 24th. So if somebody would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. I think we'll have roll call.
Scalamini,
Here.
Stransky,
Yes.
Wasserman, Ranachek,
Yes.
Krosky,
Yes.
Jackman. Yes. And Jurdy.
Yes.
Okay. So as Phil mentioned, we did review the draft Regional Transportation Improvement Program in November. This is the document that we prepare every other year that programs the money that we have available through the State Transportation Improvement Program. Thanks to the passage of SB 1, we have $3 million available to us through the STIP fund estimate for this STIP cycle. This is a great improvement since in 2016 we were deleting projects because of the statewide funding shortage. So the $3 million that was identified in the fund estimate includes $43,000 that the MCOG board previously approved for the Sherwood Road geometric upgrade project it's been approved but not actually allocated by Caltrans yet, and then $298,000 that was identified for planning, programming, and monitoring, which is the money that goes into the annual planning work program. So that leaves about $2,659,000 available for programming on projects. In addition to that money, the fund estimate also identified $1,682,000 in advanced project development element funding, which is money that can be programmed in a STIP cycle for the environmental or design component of any project that does not also have right-of-way or construction programmed. So the working with the Technical Advisory Committee, MCOG has developed the draft Regional Transportation Improvement Program. The TAC determined that the priority for utilizing the funding in this RTIP was to replace the projects that, as I mentioned, were deleted in 2016. So you'll see those reflected in the document, and that includes the county's North State intersection and interchange improvement project that will have environmental and design programmed. And then Fort Bragg's South Main Street pedestrian improvement projects, which will be for the entire project. The one exception to replacing projects that were deleted is that it was determined that the construction funding for the roundabout, the City of Ukiah roundabout at Low Gap and North Bush, should not be programmed at this time to allow time for completion of a traffic study that's currently in the works to assess the traffic issues in the area. So as you'll see later, we have proposed to establish a future funding commitment for construction on that project pending the outcome of that study. In addition to replacing those projects, there are 3 other projects that the TAC recommended additional funding, 3 other existing projects that the TAC has recommended some additional funding for. One is the Wallala Downtown Streetscape Project, which is a Caltrans implemented locally funded project through downtown Wallala. Currently has environmental only programmed. And so this RTIP proposes to also program the
I have to change things here, so can you call me back on my desk phone, please? Sorry to interrupt. Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'll be at my desk in a minute. I'm sorry to interrupt. We just had a happen with room reservation.
Can I go ahead? Can I continue? Or do I need to wait?
No, I think you go ahead.
Okay.
They want the money.
Yeah, Rex isn't going to complain about this. So currently, the Wallala project currently has environmental programmed. Caltrans has been working on that, and the next component would be PS&E, and so this RTIP includes funding for the PS&E of that project. There's also additional money needed due to cost overruns on the Sherwood Road geometric upgrade project and the Willits Bypass relinquishment project, which will both provide improvements within Willits, and those cost increases total $198,000. So all of the all right. So the proposed programming for projects is listed in the staff report. Then also included is the final version of the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, which includes those same projects. It also includes an analysis of how the projects support the goals and policies of the Regional Transportation Plan. And then it also, as I mentioned, it proposes to establish future funding commitments for the Ukiah Low Gap Road and North Bush Intersection Improvement Program for construction funding on that project. This was something that was deleted in 2016. And then construction and right-of-way funding for the North State Intersection Interchange Improvement Project. And that is something that was actually established in the 2014 RTIP and has been carried forward since then. And I'm also, I just want to explain these future funding commitments. We used to refer to them as reserves. I'm trying to get away from that term because reserve implies that we have the money in the bank waiting to spend it but in reality, we carry them forward even when we don't have money as to program when funding becomes available and when the agencies that are implementing the projects are ready to move forward to those next components of the project. So that's why the change in terminology. So there is a draft resolution included in your packet which adopts the RTIP, and the Technical Advisory Committee met actually at the end of October and recommended approval of the RTIP as is presented here today. So we do have a public hearing, so we need to open the public hearing and receive public comments if there
Okay,
are
first,
any.
I just want to ask, are there any questions of staff on the staff presentation? No. Okay, all right, so at 1:49, we'll open the public hearing. Going once, twice. Okay, at 1:50, we'll close the public hearing. Second go around, any questions of staff? The presentation. Someone want to make a motion?
I move to adopt the RTIP.
I'll second.
So just to clarify, that would be adopting the resolution.
As
correct?
presented.
Yes. Thank you.
Scalamini,
Aye.
Stransky,
Yes.
Wasserman,
Yes.
Ranachek,
Yes.
Krosky,
Yes.
Jackman. Jackman,
Yes.
that's okay. Judy,
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to mention that we were looking for some press quotes.
Excuse me, Janet. There's somebody trying to get in the boardroom. The door locks when you close it.
Well, we gotta take that taken care of before they have a chance to speak. Just keep it locked.
Yeah, There's a lot
full?
of noise out there, but.
Mr. Chair, perhaps we should address the fact we have somebody who may have been here on that item.
Were you here for the 2018 RTIP?
No, the MCOG meeting.
Okay.
That's it.
This is the MCOG meeting, yeah.
For unmet needs?
Well, yes.
Oh, were you here for the MTA unmet needs? Okay,
That was
Uh,
the first thing on the agenda, I think.
yeah.
Did I miss it?
Shall we go back? I mean, today is the
Um,
day.
We can go back to maybe, yeah. Well, we've already opened the closed public hearing, but what if we just enter public comments?
I
and
think
forward
we
it to
could
MTA?
reopen it. It's been noticed for today. We'd like to get any input that's,
Yeah, if
Public
you'd like to comment on unmet needs for MTA, come to the microphone and state your name.
Please sign in.
Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, I'd like to apologize for running a little late. My name is Pam Jensen. I work for Ukiah Valley Association for Habilitation, and we serve adults with developmental disabilities in the community. And we serve approximately 100 people on a daily basis. And we provide day services, and we also provide employment services. And many of the people have jobs that they go to, and many of the people are employed by us, working for various customers in the community, whether it be motel housekeeping or domestic housekeeping or grounds maintenance, or we have a couple retail crews at a couple of the local stores in town. And I'll say what I say almost every time you guys meet is, if we could just have a little bit, another half hour earlier in the morning, it would be really helpful. Sometimes people can't get to those jobs that they need to get to because the service is not available, or because the taxis are full and everybody's already got a ride. I had one gal that had to wait about a year to get a ride to work, so that she didn't have to get there 45 minutes early. It's kind of like you get on time or you get there really early. So that's really the only thing I wanted to say to you all, and I appreciate the fact that you took time to listen. And
excuse
thank
me,
you for
are
your
we talking
service.
about, that's in Ukiah, right?
Yes.
Fixed route?
Fixed routes, and as I said, the taxi thing.
Data rights?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I think we could forward that to MTA. Okay, all right.
Yes.
So now let's go to item number 7, which is adoption.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, just before you move on the subject of the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, I just wanted to say that we're working on a press release, and there is kind of a statewide effort to highlight projects that are being funded by Senate Bill 1,
Okay.
which has several bills trying to repeal it, and so there's some effort to show where taxpayers' money is going to, some beneficial projects. So maybe if any of you have anything you'd like to say, maybe we can meet after the meeting and come up with a couple of quotations we could use in the
Okay.
press release. Thank
All
you.
right, great.
I'd be happy to put some in there.
Great, thank you.
Okay, item number 7, which is adoption of the environmental document for the State Route 162 corridor multi-purpose trail project.
James Sickney will be handling this one. I'm going to move to the back row, and I'll let him do the introductions.
Playing musical chairs today.
Good afternoon. At our last meeting, I informed you guys that we had, or that the 30-day public comment period was open for the CEQA process, and that we would be coming here today with a final document. And so our consultant, GHD. They took all the comments we received. We had 2 letters, and they addressed those, and they added that to Appendix D, which previously did not exist in the MND. It has been uploaded to the website. I'm hoping that you all saw that. In addition to that, they also developed the Mitigation, Monitoring, and Reporting Program, the MMRP, which is also a requirement for CEQA. And that was also posted on the website. And today we have Misha Schwartz from GHD. He is the head environmental scientist that was leading this project. And I was going to have him explain more of the CEQA process to you, since that is his expertise.
Great, thank you. Is this mic on? Or? This one's on. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Misha Schwartz. I'm a senior scientist with GHD out of Eureka, California. And we're here today to talk about Resolution M201715. As you probably know, this trail in Covelo has been in the process for quite some time. And we're going to talk today about the CEQA process, or the California Environmental Equality Act process, which is required for projects that have any discretionary action and approval. Today in front of you have a resolution that if you do approve this resolution, it's going to do a multitude of things, and we'll talk about that briefly. But what you are considering is a resolution to adopt a mitigated neg deck, adopt a mitigation and reporting program, approve the project, which at this point is alternative 1, and then direct staff to file a notice of termination. A little bit of what's been going on. So GHD assisted in preparation of the initial study, mitigated neg deck. We had biologists out there. We hired cultural resources sub-consultants and did all the necessary studies and wetland delineations in order to prepare the report. The report's been prepared per CEQA guidelines, and was circulated, which is required, between October 17th, 2017 and November 16th, 2017. And we did receive 2 comments, which I'll talk about in a minute. A public meeting was held on October 26th, 2017 at 6 p.m. in Covelo. We actually did not receive any public comments on those during that meeting. We did receive 2 letters on the initial study mitigated neg deck, which is common to receive letters. One was from Christopher Neri, which was a comment letter regarding potential drainage concerns and wetlands that are on the Dewey White property. Attached to the letter from the attorney was also a technical report with regards to the alleged location of some wetlands, as well as some drainage issues that occur on that property. During our field studies, we did not have access to that property. We did map some wetlands, viewing them from the Caltrans Road, and those went on our wetlands map, and that map and all that data has been submitted to the Corps of Engineers for their reviews, and San Francisco being reviewed right now. The second letter that we received was from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. They had concerns with regards to yellow-legged frogs, which are candidate species under the California Endangered Species Act. They also had concerns with regards to pre-construction bat surveys, and they also had some concerns with regard to a lupin that we did not see out there when we did our botanical surveys. GHD followed the protocols for botanical surveys. We went during the blooming season, and we also went multiple times out there. So in consequence of the Department of Fish and Wildlife letter, we actually amended our mitigation measures, which are allowed between the initial study and adoption of the mitigated neg deck. We changed some language around on some of the plant surveys, which was pretty minor. And again, as part of that Appendix D, which will become part of the initial study MND. And then we also added a mitigation measure that will be working with the department with regards to this state-listed lupin. Again, we did not see the lupin. They're alleging that there's potential seed bank. Apparently, the family of this type of plant has a seed bank that could be persistent. Our biologist is actually meeting with the department this Thursday out on site, and we've already contacted their lead botanist, Gordon Lipeg, and we're discussing that with him. And we will be engaging them through this process. Once this mitigated neg deck gets adopted and the project approved, then that will allow funds to be released for further design and permitting of the project. We already know we have some state-listed species in the creek that we're going to have to deal with as well. Another change that was made to the mitigation measures deals with the yellow-legged frog. We already had mitigation in there, mitigation for amphibians and pre-construction surveys. We just changed the language a little bit and specifically included that species. We did not see that species when we did our biological surveys. And the last addition we made to the actual mitigation measures was we added on to the required pre-construction bird surveys that would be looked for bats. Particularly, there was concern that there may be bats nesting under the bridge. And just like the construction will have some limitations on breeding birds, we may have some construction limitations on breeding bats from a temporal standpoint. So these are standard things that we deal with. We also just wanted to be sure to update our analysis as well, and you received a memorandum today from James, and I'm not going to read through the entire language, but our studies and the work we had done did not think that there was going to be any impact on this state-listed lupin, but we've adjusted the language to say that all that wasn't observed. There are some historic locations where where we may be putting the trail through, and we're going to work with the department, and it may mean skimming off some soil and spreading the soil out that has the seed source in it. So not a real big deal. We're obviously already mitigating for wetlands and oak trees, and that's all part of this. So your action today, again, would do multiple things. You would adopt the mitigated neg deck. You would adopt the mitigation reporting program. You would approve alternative 1, and then again you would direct staff to file the notice of determination. The filing a notice of determination then starts a 30-day statute of limitation. If anybody has any concerns about this project and wanted to litigate the project, they have 30 days to do so from the day that the notice of determination is filed, which I suspect will be today, as well as paying the fee. So at this point, I'd like to stop and see if you have any questions. Then I'd recommend that you open this meeting up for public comment and allow 3 minutes or so per person, and also ask that they provide written comment. Close the comment period. If you have any questions after that, be happy to answer them, or James. And then if you don't, then you can take action or not on this resolution.
I just have one question. This is listed as just regular item. It's not listed as a public hearing. Are we required to list this as a public hearing? No.
So I specifically use language for public comment, not public hearing.
Yeah.
No, you are not required to do this. But if you wanted to open up, if there's someone here to make public comment, it's not a public hearing, it's just public comment. It's not required by statute, and it's my understanding it's not required by this organization neither.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? Do we have any public comments on this? If so, please come to the microphone, state your name. Okay, not seeing any.
If you could just say close the public comment period. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. Again, it's not required by statute. It's just it's more courtesy for the public if they do have comments prior to adoption.
Okay, we were seeking public comment from 204 to 205. Nobody came forward. Well, we have recommended motion here. Does someone want to adopt the resolution? Move to adopt.
I will move to adopt the resolution.
Yeah, I'll second.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
I think we had 3 seconds.
Okay. Which one want to pick? Okay, straight.
Larry.
Thank you. Okay, Scalamini,
Yes.
Stransky,
Yes.
Wasserman,
Yes.
Renichek,
Yes.
Krosky,
Yes.
Jackman,
Yes.
Jurdy.
Yes. Okay, so the next, thank you.
Thank you.
Next thing on our, and just while you're here, the next step is this gets filed. What's the rough time frame for construction? Is the funding available for the construction yet?
No. Next step, we'll go file the NOD across the hall after the meeting. That'll open up the 30-day period. That also allows me to go to the CTC in January and allocate the money for design for phase 1 and 2. And then we're going to work on the design, work on the permits, work on the right-of-way as well. Construction, I believe, is programmed for 18-19, possibly 19-20. I'd have to go back and look at the paperwork. And so I don't know that we'll actually be done with enough time to do an early allocation, if that would even be possible under the ATP program. So we're looking at 19-20 for construction. So, and depending on when we get the money programmed, or I mean allocated, it'll be either late summer 19 or spring of 20 when we put it out to bid.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is 2018 board meeting calendar.
We have a draft calendar in your packet for 2018. And we don't need to adopt this today. Occasionally we have new members come on board first of the year. So we just wanted you to look this over, see if there's any input on some of these dates. There are 2 placeholders for a possible transportation tour, mobile workshop in April and September. And at present, we don't have any big ideas for places to go that'll be ready to show anything off right now, but those are the times when we've usually gone out in the field and looked at projects in the community in the spring and the fall. And maybe Phil might have some remarks on that.
No.
No. As I said, we didn't have any huge ideas. We've kind of been everywhere around the county that has any major projects and plans. There are some things going on, but maybe they're not quite ready to show anything.
And we generally like to highlight things that have been accomplished, and you know, I watched some of the reaction when we talked about the trail project not being ready till 19/20. That's how long it takes to do even what you normally think is a simple project. Nothing is simple. So if something comes up in the next couple of months that we think it would be worth the council's time to do it, we'll talk to you about it at the February meeting.
So often in April, we don't have a whole lot of regular business, and sometimes we'll cancel that meeting, or that's also a good time to go out on a tour. So that's just a placeholder. Generally, it's the first Monday of the month. No meeting in January. Typically no meeting in July unless there's some kind of special meeting, some urgent business. And usually no meeting in September either. And that's just because first Monday often falls right around, New Year's, 4th of July, Labor Day. And so it's 9 to 10 meetings a year. We did look at August. Typically, we're trying to bridge a big gap between the June meeting and the October meeting. So we'll put it in late August, and sometimes that falls right on top of people's vacations. And so we do have a third Monday date there, August 20th, so you might think about that one. I think Chairman Jurdy said that works for him, and it works for us. But we can adjust this as we go forward. But so this is just pretty much for your input. If you have anything you'd like us to change, we can do that, and we'll come back at our next meeting and adopt the calendars. So
we'd be adopting the. well, this is the last meeting of the year, so our next meeting will be in February.
Yeah, and again, I don't anticipate we'll have really any turnover or that we know about. It's not an election year, but sometimes the reason we don't adopt it until later is that sometimes this group isn't the group that will be attending those meetings. So, we try to adopt it the first opportunity in the calendar year when all the members are seated who will be attending. So, I suppose we could adopt it. It wasn't agendized that way.
Okay.
Also, I've noted just some of the conferences and seminars that coming up during the year that could be of interest, educational options. That, we do have a travel budget, and if you'd like to attend any of those, that's a possibility. Something to think about. The next one coming up is the California Transportation Foundation Annual Forum in Sacramento. That's just usually a half a day, and so there's time to get over there and come back in the same day. That's pretty convenient. And that's on February 21st. And it's kind of a good wrap up of what's going on in the transportation policy world. And you can have, FaceTime with elected people or agency heads and the people that are close to what's happening. So we get presentations, and people from all over the state come to that. And then, of course, the CalCog meeting will be in March this year. We're members of that association, and usually we'll send staff and any directors that would like to go, and a CalCog delegate who will be appointed in February. So right now, Director Scalmanini's our delegate, and Chairman Jurdy's our alternate delegate on that. And that's a really good kind of networking meeting with your peers and kind of best practices and up-and-coming issues. And sometimes we get a good kind of heads up on what's coming next and latest news kinds of things. So that one's usually really interesting. And then the final one I had here was the Focus on the Future conference. That's the Self-Help Counties Coalition, and it tends to be more the agencies that have passed a dedicated transportation sales tax, and they get together and talk about their issues. So that's about all I have on this.
Thanks.
Shall we continue that to next meeting? Okay.
Thanks.
We will put it on for the next agenda.
So next we have consent calendar, which includes adoption of the minutes from November 6th. Does anyone have any comments on the consent calendar, or does someone want to make a
I'd like to just call your attention to one small amendment to the minutes. It's on page 5 under planning staff. It's item E1. And it's the date the proposals are due for the Transportation Planning Grants. We had down January 21st. It's actually February 23rd. So that's the next cycle. And the cycle for planning grant applications opens on January 2nd and closes on February 23rd. So I'd just like to make that amendment.
Nothing wrong with January 21st.
It's a little early.
That's my birthday.
Oh, right. Well, there's nothing wrong with it. No.
Okay.
Okay. Also
Happy birthday in advance.
Also in the consent calendar, we have a resolution approving the updated title, I guess it's Title 6 program and associated limited English proficiency plan, authorize the executive director to execute said policy on behalf of the Mendocino Council of Governments. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Are there any public comments on the consent calendar? Not seeing any.
I'll second.
Okay. Do you want to call the roll?
Scalamini.
Aye.
Stransky.
Yes.
Wasserman.
Yes.
Ranachek.
Yes.
Krosky.
do we have we need to recess as the Policy Advisory Committee and reconvene as the Regional Transportation Planning Agency. Do we have a motion to ratify the actions of the Regional Transportation, the Policy Advisory Committee? We're voting without Caltrans now.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to ratify the actions of the advisory committee.
Okay, Scalamini,
Yes.
Stransky.
Yes.
Wasserman.
Yes.
Ranachek.
Yes.
Krosky.
Yes.
And Jurdy.
Yes. Okay, now we're not on reports, informational items. Mendocino Transit Authority. Carla, do you have anything you want to report?
Okay. Sorry.
Good afternoon. Actually, quite a bit going on at MTA. Everything there keeps going round and around, and it's doing pretty well. I have several things I'd like to report on. We had our first annual board retreat. I think that was Steve's first day on our board in late October. I felt it was a really huge success. We hired a facilitator from Sacramento. All the board members and management and mid-management was there. And by the end of the day, we had come out with a strategic plan and 3 main goals that we're going to focus the direction for the future of MTA on. And even better than that, when you have that kind of a vision, then when you build your 5-year plan, which I'll be applying for this coming year, you base the plan on your strategic vision. So that was a really good day. We had our first all-staff training day on Veterans Day. California law requires that bus operators receive 8 hours of refresher training per year. It's a good thing, but when you run service from 5 in the morning till 11 at night, it's a difficult thing. And so we were doing, you know, an hour here, 2 hours there. You'd see the morning drivers with their heads going like this, and they'd walk out and not really have a whole lot left in their heads. Not to mention the fact that it was always us up there going blah, 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 blah. That gets old after a while. So we had the guest speakers come in. We made it from 9 to 4. And people were absolutely amazed, and they enjoyed it a lot, and they got a lot out of it. We had a lot of safety training functions, wheelchair securement, refreshment, new policies and procedures. All the drivers got a new driver's bag with an MTA coffee cup and lots of goodies in it. So they were, I've heard nothing but good back from even some individuals that I didn't think I'd hear good back from. There was one snafu, and that was for Pam. She and I have since met because when we closed that day, we actually totally forgot. That's no way to put it, but we forgot. And we disenfranchised all those riders. So she gave me a call. We've met. We've talked about it. We're putting our heads together. And next year, what we're hoping to do is coordinate how we can get all of her clients picked up to their jobs, to their day programs, and still have our all-staff training too. And with our Route Match Dial-A-Ride booking program, we should be able to route that fairly well. And she's going to work with some of her group homes and employees to see, you know, who they could pick up maybe to get in. So we'll have it coordinated better next year. Excuse me. The new route match, fixed route, AVL GPS, it's in progress. However, slowly. Any good project, there's always hiccups. But everything is in. The route match staff have come in, they've assessed the system, and now they're going to be coming in to put in the tablets and the cradle points on all of the buses. And it's going to be really great when we don't have to, client or rider calls in and says, where's that bus? They can look on their phone through Route Shout, Or if they want to call dispatch because they don't want to look on their phone like me, dispatch can see exactly where that bus is at instead of having to get on the radio and call them. And of course, as you know, that's also going to answer our communications dilemma with the radio towers, as it will now communicate through the tablets. After 4 long months of recruitment, we finally hired a new dispatcher. In years past, as you know, we have drivers on the road till 11 at night, and the dispatcher goes home at 6 o'clock. That is a huge safety concern. You never want to leave a driver out there at night with no lifeline. Yes, they have a cell phone, and yes, there's a on-call supervisor, but if you need help fast, you may not have time to do that. So we have finally hired someone, and as soon as this individual is trained, dispatch will be there Monday through Friday till the last driver comes in at 11. So we'll have that covered for them. That's about it for me, unless you have any questions.
If there are fewer buses running in those later hours, I assume that there are fewer buses. I'm assuming that there will be some other tasks that the dispatcher will be able to do.
Oh, we got plenty.
Okay. Yeah.
No shortage of paperwork.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing. You know, we can. That's that little other duties is assigned in the job description. So before I go, I want to take this opportunity to invite the MCOG staff and the MCOG directors to the MTA holiday party. It's going to be Sunday, December 17th at the Broiler. Loretta can just walk. If you are interested in coming, it's going to be fun, good food. Get a hold of me by Friday, and I'll book you a seat and take your entree selection at that time. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thanks. Is there any update on North Coast Rail Authority?
It's on.
I have a couple of items of interest to report from the November NCRA meeting in Ukiah. One is that their staff reports that they are ahead of schedule on the Ukiah Depot Improvement Project. The bridge is substantially complete. They're out of the creek bed and they're working on mitigation. And that project deadline is June of 2018 to get the improvements done for the Ukiah Depot. And then the other item of interest is that NCRA staff is working with Senator McGuire's office on trying to develop some legislation. The goal is to get a bill in 2018, a bill introduced that would provide the NCRA with ongoing funding for the agency, which they have never had. Some of you that have been around a long time may recall that they've in the past been successful in getting bills through the legislature, I think twice, both of which were vetoed by Governor Schwarzenegger. So they're hopeful now with a different governor, they might have a better chance of getting legislation signed. So they're working with Senator McGuire's staff on that. And the idea is to receive annual funding in addition to a one-time pot of money to pay off some of their deficit, long-term debt. And at the last meeting, they discussed having a workshop in January, a public workshop, to discuss issues surrounding that proposed legislation with Senator McGuire's staff in attendance. So I sent an email to the NCRA. I've asked if that workshop's been scheduled, and I'm tracking that. So I think that's it for NCRA.
Okay, thanks, Laura. We have the MCOG staff summary of meetings. Is there anything you want to highlight?
No, nothing to highlight. Just a general comment that the finally the multitude of meetings with the implementation of Senate Bill 1 is starting to slow down a little bit as different components of the program are becoming adopted, and guidelines adopted and programs adopted, and the CTC California Transportation Commission is meeting in Riverside on Wednesday and Thursday, and I'll get to that a little bit pretty soon, but other pieces of it will be behind us. So lots of meetings all over the state since last summer.
Okay. Well, so you just went straight into SB1 implementation road repair, or is that separate?
Well, that's a separate, there's a staff report, which it's kind of, it varies a little bit each meeting as things get checked off. So it is different than last month, but I try to standardize it a little bit. What's happening this week is with the local partnership program, and what they're going to do is actually adopt the formula shares. I think they're going to be doing that on Wednesday. So that's good news for the 3 cities that have the self-help sales tax, and there's only 7 cities in the state that have them, and that's going to guarantee $100,000 a year, at least through the first couple of years. And the whole plan was that they would revisit this in a couple of years, see how the formulas were working out, but we're off to a good start with it.
Okay, thanks.
Nothing other to add regarding Senate Bill 1.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Not seeing any.
Let me see. The next one I have to stand up. And we had this in our agenda packet last time, and the Caltrans District 1 Director, Matt Brady, calls me and says, "Hey, that's supposed to be a surprise." And I said, well, I got the information because one of my former employees who worked in Lake County went to work for Caltrans. She's now a senior transportation person with Caltrans in a different district. And she said, look, congratulations, look what you guys got. So I put it in the agenda to show you, because this came through the Caltrans process. And so he said, it was going to be a surprise. And it was too late. But anyway, since then, since the last meeting, they sent us this nice plaque that kind of commemorates the partnership that we had with Caltrans, which we are continuing to have because this mitigation thing is never going to end. And the project, the mitigation will end, but it's going to be several more years before we get the entire process complete. But this went on for 35, 36 years so far, and so we get a plaque out of it, and we get a project done. So I'm just going to pass this around. This is a thing that Caltrans does on an annual basis, where they pick certain projects around the state that they're in-house competition that they're particularly proud of, and they were proud of this project, and it won the rural competition for highway projects. That's all I have.
Nothing under miscellaneous?
I wanted to tell you that this was going to be an even more packed agenda, but we found out, and the Feely found out for us about the regional transportation plan, and the plan to adopt that a couple of months ago was also going to be at this meeting. We found out that it wasn't critical that we finished, and there were a few little things that we would like to add to it and allow time for yet another public meeting to see if anybody wants to comment at one last time. And so we're planning on bringing it back at the February meeting for consideration of adoption. Again, this plan needs to be adopted now on a 4-year cycle. It used to be a 5-year cycle. We're doing this to fit in with the counties and the cities, their housing element, and it just works better this way. So we decided to do this several years ago. So it's kind of a warning that the regional transportation plan is going to be on the next agenda. And that's all I have under miscellaneous. And back to planning staff, unless there's any questions.
Not seeing any, yeah. Go ahead, Lauren.
We wanted to update you on a couple of MCOG's local grant processes. Number one, the proposals received for next year's transportation planning overall work program were due this past Friday, and we received 4 applications from local agencies. A project from the city of Fort Bragg to do transportation planning for the mill site reuse and rezoning project. An application from the County Department of Transportation to do, it's their annual work element, to do special studies for the cities and for their own road department. We received an application from MTA to prepare transit designs guidelines manual, and an application from MCOG administration to work on a zero emissions vehicle, ZEV, and alternative fuels readiness plan update to update our existing plan. So those were received by the deadline this past Friday, and those will go into our process. We'll be working with the TAC to develop next year's overall work program over the next few months, and those will eventually come to you during budget decisions. And then secondly, under number B, this past Friday was also the deadline for local agencies to submit proposals for MCOG's Local Transportation 2% Bike and Pedestrian Fund program. That's a very small pot of money that when you adopt the budget each year, you allocate a small amount for these bike and ped projects, typically in the neighborhood of about $60,000. So we had a couple of years worth of money plus some interest, a total of about $137,000 available. We received 3 applications, one from the city of Willits to do pedestrian ramp improvements on Elm Lane, an application from the County Department of Transportation for additional funding for their Branscombe Road multi-use bridge project, and we received an application from the city of Point Arena to rehab the bike lanes on their port road that goes from State Route 1 down to the wharf or the pier. So the TAC will be looking at these applications likely in January, and I expect be bringing a recommendation to you in February on those. So we just wanted to update you on that process. Any questions? Okay. And then under miscellaneous, we're happy to report that we just learned today that the application we submitted to Caltrans under the Sustainable Communities Grant Program for the pedestrian facility needs inventory and engineered feasibility study was recommended by staff, and the actual action will be taken by the CTC on Wednesday this week. So we're happy with that and expect it to be approved by the CTC. And if you recall, I reported previously that this grant application is to cover the area of the county, the
area of the county not named the South Coast.
Not in the South Coast, because the South Coast portion for the same project and the city of Point Arena was funded in the work program amendment that you approved last month. So we have a project over the whole county funded under 2 different funding sources. So that's good news. And I think.
And when would that planning process commence if the funds were approved?
I'm sorry?
When would the planning process go forward if the grant was approved?
For the grant project? The timeline is to begin in February. It takes a few months to go through the Caltrans contracting process to get the award. But the timeline is to begin in February. However, the project in the OWP we are starting on writing the RFP now. So I'm going to be talking to Caltrans to see if we can do one combined project, do one procurement process to get one consultant on board. It just makes sense for efficiency to do one project funded by two funding sources. But since the grant project cannot begin until February, I'm going to see if we can, start the locally funded portion or the state RPA funded portion beforehand.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So that's about, what, nearly $180,000?
Yes, the grant's about 180 plus the match that we will be asking for in the work programs.
And we have how much in the work program? About 50?
For the match?
In the work program project for the South Coast?
It's about 70.
About 70. So it's going to be a large project, but I know I spoke about this before. Its intent is to produce a whole backlog of pedestrian improvement projects, sidewalks and such, even pedestrian crossing projects as well, and have them available and already prioritized so that we would have a steady supply line for the active transportation program well into the future. So I'm really happy about this one.
Okay.
And the only thing I have under miscellaneous, and Nifty might have something else, but I think as Janet mentioned earlier, the next planning grant cycle, those applications are due February 23rd. And we've told local agencies we're available to help them with grant applications. And then we are also watching the active transportation program guidelines that are currently being developed, and that next cycle begins in March.
Okay, thanks. Do we have any MCOG board reports, more member reports? No. I think there's really anything to report from CalCog. No meetings recently that I participated in. Okay, but then we'll adjourn at 2:37.
We want your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.